speed kite surfing and what I did for my final thesis at the Technical University of Delft. And I will talk a bit about the practical part of high altitude wind power, because Wilbo just gave more some ideas and some ideas about how it should be, but for me the task is to make something that really works, and that's always different than when you make something up quickly. But I'll talk about speed kite surfing first. Start with a small video. This is Vlugt in Namibia. This is where I set my record. That's still standing. And I just want to show you how this record attempt looks like. Yeah, it's like a complete desert. The wind comes from the left and just pulls into a bay, about 9/4, 45 knots or something. The water is pretty shallow, but actually it doesn't. It's not that scary that it's shallow, because if you fall, you just bump over the water. You don't go deep at all. You see the kite, if a gust hits the kite, you see it really pulling forward. Here, sometimes you see that it's having difficulty to stay nice and still. The whole game is to put as much force in it as you can, and if you put too much force in it, then you cannot control it anymore. Here it says 46.72, but that's later on it was corrected to 47.36, so that was my real record. Yeah, that's about 88 kilometers per hour. Okay, so I'll talk about my thesis work, and I'll first show a few more videos. This actually is the one that Wilbo already showed, and I just wait. This is another video from Vlugt. This is actually my fastest run that I ever did. It was after the competition, because the water went down. So the part where we were just kite surfing is dried out, and you could still make these small runs, not the long 500-meter runs, but just take about 100 meters and try to go, just full forward. And I could take it to a velocity of 103 kilometers per hour, just on a peak, on a 1 second average. And I must say it's a lot harder to reach top velocity for over 500 meters than just this 1 second. So if I say 103 over 1 second and 88 kilometers over 500 meters, it's not like you can easily do the 103 over 500 meters. But
what I think is interesting
I want to try.
Is to realize that you produce about at least 10 kilowatts of power, direct power, which if you would have an outboard motor, you needed at least about 40 horsepower, outboard motor to get to the same speed from the board.
Yeah, what I also thought was funny when we got away from Mauritius, we were trying to calculate how much energy this boat was using to get forward and to just take everybody and the weight of the whole boat. You expect it to be quite large. We came to an estimate of around 40 kilowatts. So if you think that here I'm doing about 10 kilowatts, then you can imagine that it's a lot of speed and a lot of force that's working there. Yeah, so this is what I do at home. I live here in Scheveningen. Wibbo already showed it a bit, but I want to say a few more things about it. Nice thing is at northwestern winds, so completely onshore winds. This is about 9 × 4, like a real storm. Then I come out and I do my thing. The waves are pretty big on the outside, but they break coming in, and then they leave these completely flat patches, which are good for high speeds. But still, you have to be very careful, because every time a wave comes in, so you're going at full speed, and then a wave comes in, and then you have to make a little hop over the wave. So that makes it always, yeah, like that one, makes it always a little bit difficult. And my speeds are definitely not as high as in Luderitz here. But yeah, it's just nice to ride along a little bit. Yeah, this is something else that I really wanted to show you. It's the hydrofoil. I already showed it in Mauritius, but here's a small video from the looking from the kite. And here you see that you just walk in the water with it, just put it down, you sit, put your feet in the foot straps, and then you steer in the kite. This is really light wind. And you see how fast you're up on the foil. So the board is not touching the water, and the foil is really flying on the water. You can see it sometimes. And this thing is so unbelievably efficient. You can go upwind like nobody else. You cannot go really fast, because then I lose control. You can make a few jumps with it if you want. This is a big trick. Try to switch your feet. I guess nobody saw it, but I was standing with my feet like this, and I tried to switch my feet without landing the board on the water. This is during the Belgian championships, and I was going so fast on this thing that I had time to just shake hands at a boat during the race and just fool around a little bit. There's a little jump, back loop, and a front loop, but it doesn't always work. Last part I race against 2 catamarans, and catamarans are able to go really high upwind, but yeah, on the hydrofoil I can easily pass them. I just go downwind of them and then cross upwind and just play around with them. So it's just a crazy powerful thing. So that's the hydrofoil. It's quite addictive if you start with it. see if this one is working. Yeah. So now about speed sailing. Yeah, when you look at the different competitors that are trying to get the outright speed sailing record, there are actually 5 competitors that are really that you could call really serious. Slowest of them has the same velocity that I have, 88 kilometers per hour. They've been in Walvis Bay in Namibia trying to get higher and higher speeds, but they ended up at 88 kilometers per hour, and I guess they're not gonna continue anymore because they put so much time and money in it. So I guess they're finished, but you never know. Maybe they get some funding and come back. Then there's windsurfers. They had the record before kite surfers took over the record. Ended up at 90 kilometers per hour. They've been working really hard, improving the fins, improving the board. They had a pretty steep curve, but now, yeah, it seems to level off for quite some time. Another boat, Macquarie Innovations, is like a rigid wing standing on a tripod, and it's actually it's 2 planing surfaces on this side, and the 3rd foot of the tripod is just hanging above the water, just not touching it, but only giving some counterweight. This team had the record for about 11 years before windsurfers took over. After that, they improved their speed with a new boat, but by the time they did this, kite surfers were already faster. They were at 94 kilometers per hour. But 1 year after kite surfers took the record, a crazy boat called the Hydropter came in and took the record at 95 kilometers per hour. And this fight is not finished yet. This year again, kite surfers will go to Luderitz and try to take back what they think should be theirs. But we'll see. It's a nice and exciting fight between all these boats. Now, I'm also trying to break this Hydropter record. And during my final thesis, I got the time to really look into it as deep as I can. What I did actually was I looked at the whole kiteboarder as a system. I divided it. I looked at lines. You have a rider, you have a kite, and you have a board. So I divided it up in 4 parts. And first, looking at the lines, I had to. One very important thing was something that's strong for the kites is that you have a wind gradient. So the wind gets stronger the higher you go. But if you want to take this into account, you have to calculate the line drag at each different height and then add it all up. So this makes the calculation a little bit more complicated. But that's how I took on the lines. I'll later explain how much drag I found on the lines. Same thing I did for the rider. I took different parts. I looked at the drag on my head, on my arms, on my legs, and I added it all up. I looked at the forces that came into my legs through the board and through the line tension of the kite, and I have some weight of myself. So I look at all these forces, and when I have a nice picture from the front, and I can check how much force there is on the lines, because in this case I don't have any measurements, I don't have any line tension measuring device or anything. So by looking at these pictures, I could give a pretty good estimate of how much force was working on me. I could see that the line tension was between 70% and 90% of my body weight, and board force between 85 and 115. So it means, if you stand on the board trying to go as fast as possible, you don't get that much heavier, or you don't put in really a lot more than your body weight. Then I looked at the kite. The kite was quite a big part of my thesis. I looked at it by sweeping the kite through the wind. Just the crosswind motion that Wibbo talked about. And if I know that a kite is reaching a certain velocity with respect to the wind velocity, with this information I can get some idea about how good the kite is. So if you would say have 5 knots of wind and you steer the kite through the wind, the faster the kite goes, the better it is. So simple it really is. And doing this, I had a very small GPS in the kite, and I used some load cells to measure line tension, combined it all, and I could compare the results of each kite. And then for each kite I had many sweeps, so many dots, and with these dots you can see that the lift to drag ratio of around 6 was a pretty good estimate for the kite that I'm using, just like Wibbo told. For the board, I did more or less the same kind of trick. I used GPS inside the kite and a GPS on my body, and that way I could exactly see which direction the kite is pulling me in, and from that I can see in which direction the board force is working. Because if the kite pulls forward like this, then you already know that the board has to pull backward in exactly the opposite direction, because otherwise you would be going faster and faster or slowing down. So yeah, just using 2 GPSs I could already get a nice idea, and I also used these load cells for measuring line tension, so I could learn more and more about which forces were working on the kite. So this I could use to make a whole model and predict which forces were working on the board in different situations. I took 2 situations, one in, these are actually 2 competitions where I went to. In France, a place called Port Saint Louis, with crazy strong wind, 9/4. But still, the velocity that I could obtain was 78 kilometers per hour, which is not that high. And this was mostly due to the low angle. So we were almost, I was almost sailing at a square angle to the wind, where here you go much more into the direction of the wind. So this is a big difference if you go close to 90 degrees, or the further you go away from 90 degrees, the more interesting it gets. And there I plotted the amount of the percentage of drag, because if one part of your kite surfing equipment has a lot of drag, then you should focus on that part to take away the drag. You see that line drag here was about 6%, and the board drag in both cases is around 60%. So it's really clear that if you want to go faster, the board is a very important part. And this is also part of the reason why I'm so interested in this hydrofoil board, because even though I'm not able to go really fast on it now, I think maybe if I learn more about it I can make it go a lot faster. And it has shown already that it's very efficient, only it's hard to control. You see that the kite drag and the rider drag are more or less the same, especially in this case, which is also interesting, because if you would say I'm a speed kite surfer and I want to go fast, what do I have to do? Then normally you would say you just take a very good and big kite, but you also have to pay attention that your body doesn't drag too much. So maybe we can do things like put these strips that ice skaters put on their body. Try to find some tricks to make the drag on the rider go down. It would be interesting. Here I try to see what would happen if I would improve one of the parts. So if the kite lift to drag ratio goes up, that means I take a better kite by 10%. You see some speed increase, bit over 1%. The board, of course, that's what I showed already. That's a bit over 3% in Port St. Louis. That's the most interesting part to focus on. Line drag, rider drag, they also do something. But another thing that I tried to look at was the line length, because the higher you go with the kite, the more wind you have, and the longer the lines, the larger the line drag will be. But you see that if I optimize the line length in Port St. Louis, so going at almost 90 degrees, I end up at 35 meters, while normally I use about 25 meters, so that's pretty close. But if I do the same in Luderitz, going really downwind, then this line drag doesn't really matter that much. And I end up at line length of 110 meters. And I increase my speed by almost 8%, which puts me at a speed of 97 kilometers per hour, which would beat the heater up there. So if I take 110 meter lines, then it could be interesting this year. Yeah, I'm not sure if the competition will hear this, but we'll see about it. It's a very easy trick, but maybe in practice it's not as easy as in theory. So I have to work more on it and find out how it's gonna work. Yeah, I thought maybe it's nice to ask if you could ask some questions about speed kiting, and then I continue with the kite energy, the high altitude wind power. What do you think? Maybe better to continue. Yeah, and afterwards we do questions. Yeah, we both showed that this picture of the Netherlands, high altitude wind power, but there are also there's also research being done about the whole world. I didn't have a very clear picture, but you see in these areas, these are the areas where you have a lot of high altitude wind power. So these are wind-rich areas. You see in the Netherlands, we're quite okay. Where we are now, it's a very interesting area. Cape Town could be a very good place for high altitude wind power. Argentina, Australia, very good places. China. So yeah, we've seen a couple of these type of maps from different people already, but also in the high altitude you can show where the interesting areas are. It's mostly because you have the equator here. Wind goes up, moves to the poles, and then goes down again. That's why these two bands here are so energy rich. Yeah, there are different concepts to take energy from these higher layers. Pumping concepts, concepts with more like trains driving around, being propelled by kites. You can get a kite up in the air and have your generator attached to the kite. So in this concept you have a generator on the ground and you produce your energy really on the ground. And here you have these propellers up in the air and your generator up in the air. So here the energy is produced high up and has to be sent down through the line. And yeah, actually these are pretty similar to this one. What we do in Delft is mostly this. We have a traction phase where we power the kite up and we fly it aggressively to maximize the tension. And yeah, power is just line tension times the velocity with which you reel out this line. After a while the line is finished and then you have to start reeling in again. So then you depower the kite completely and you just pull in the line again with minimum line tension. And in the end you end up with some amount of energy. Yeah, we both showed the card system. We've been working quite a bit on these two cards on the tip of the kite. They drive back and forth and they can steer the kite. This is another system, just pulling the lines. made by a university in Switzerland. Our system, I didn't have a picture of it, and it looks definitely not as nice as this one, but it works a lot better because we compared the two of them. So it looks crappy, but it works very well. Yeah, I want to show a YouTube movie of our system at work. This is here we're using the card system. So if you look carefully, you can see two cards on the tips. Oh, sorry. That's nice. And they drive around, steering the kite. Here you see the ground station that we use. It's a big truck. Yeah, here you see the ground station. So it's actually a big trailer with a block of metal. It's a drum. We roll the line onto the drum and out. Here we're trying to get a lot of tension in the line to make power. And once we retrieve the kite, then you see it flying up, and then it's pulled down again. It's pretty cold, but I have a joystick steering the kite. So I won't make it too long, this one. Weer. So during these tests, that's the last thing that I want to show. Yeah, what can we really do at the moment? This is the just before I left. We went to the same airfield. Valkenburg is close to Leiden. We used a 25 square meter kite, and this is the result that you see. This is the load in kilogram force, so you see about 200 kilogram in the first peak. Here you see the cable length, starting at 100 meters and then pulling out to about 300 meters. So here we produce energy, and here we start reeling in again. And here you see the mechanical power that we make. So here's a peak of about 15 kilowatts. And that's what we do every time. Here we go up to 400 meter line length and then back to 100 again. So these are 5 cycles of producing energy. The last peak, so that's this one. You see we have 20 kilowatts of energy. It's also shown here, peak power is a bit over 20 kilowatts. And yeah, what you see is that if we steer the kite aggressively, then sometimes you get a high energy peak, but our main task is to make this go more flat. Just take out the peaks and keep producing energy so a lot of energy at a more constant level. This is our record, so that's why I want to show it to you. 20 kilowatts, we had 375 kilograms of force, and we reeled out at 5.5 meters per second. So this is what we can actually do, and I must say that I'm pretty proud that that I can present this to you, because yeah, it's been a lot of years of hard work to get somewhere.
I think there's nobody in the world who's done more than that.
I never heard about it, so maybe we're the first to make this amount of energy. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
There might be questions to Rolf or to myself, or questions in general.
Yeah, so how much is 20 kilowatts in sort of real terms?
Well, if you want to put up light bulbs of 100 watt light bulbs, then you can put in, what is it, 200 of them? 20 kilowatts, that has 4 zeros, 2,000 of them.
I think the PA system of a large rock concert in an arena is something like 20,000 watts. No.
So,
The light system is more, but not the rock.
and what did you say the average household does about?
Average household is 1/2 kilowatt, so 20 kilowatt would be 40 households.
So we're good for, yeah, but that's peak, of course. But this peak would be good for 40 households.
And that was being remotely controlled with you with a joystick.
Yeah, this last one was with not with a joystick, but with a remote control. But same trick.
The idea is to have some kind of program so it can sense the wind and how
Yeah.
to move itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now it's if you want to test your controls, your mechanism, then it's easy to be the brain yourself and just look at it and see how it goes. But in the end, it's definitely the plan to make a computer. Just it's just a robot who finds the best altitude to fly on. It's like a self-optimizing robot. Yeah, that's what it has to be in the end.
Probably stupid practical question. When you talk, especially what Beagle talked about, sailing these big boats, what kind of altitude are you talking about? What kind of altitude are the kites at?
For sailing with a boat. Yeah, I think there's no absolute answer to that. I think it can range from 300 meters up to 2 kilometers maybe.
Yeah, because I was looking at the graph that Beagle showed, and I was wondering, what about air traffic?
Air traffic and boats, yeah, you have to communicate with each other, I guess. If you go really high.
If you want to commercialize it, then
Let's put it this way: in the larger areas, like on the oceans, airplanes fly at 10 kilometers altitude. And I think that on the oceans you would get most of your benefits when you have kites maybe up to 5 or 6 kilometers altitude.
Okay.
So you're way away from airplanes. But then from an airplane point of view, an airplane flies very fast, and it's always very easy to avoid objects which fly very slow, like a kite. So you put transponders on the kite, and then the same thing will happen like you have here on board. You have the AES system, which means that you see, that there's somebody else out there. Now with the transponder and radio, you have the same system, so the airplane would see that there's a kite, and you can nicely fly around.
But here on the Indian Ocean, I can imagine that. But when you have, for instance, the Channel, which is full of boats.
Yeah, but that's you see I think the kite system you would use in the high altitudes only on the long tracks on oceans when you have lots of space. That doesn't mean that you cannot use kites in the Channel, but the kites will be very much shorter towards the ship, but you can still use them.
That's the easy thing of kite. You can just reel it in a bit. If it's if you're in a location where you're not allowed to fly that high with your kite, then you can make it lower. Just keep it low.
Are they being used? I mean, in present day situations?
Kites for ship propulsion?
You spoke with this container line vessel.
He did not use it, but he was aware of that his radar, ship company was indeed doing this research. But what I found very nicely is that he immediately said that he would love to see more of that, because he also thinks that burning all this fuel to go across the ocean while you have all this wind available.
But it's not at
But
this moment yet
they're testing.
thus far that it's being used.
You can buy it, yes. I think there's now a particular vessel built to use it in practice.
Yeah, and they
Just
equipped a
yourself.
few fishing trawlers, Dutch fishing trawlers with this system
Oh yeah.
just a short time ago. So I'm not really up to date about how many of these these systems Sky Sails is selling, but they're really serious and they're equipping more and more boats with it.
Well,
But I guess it's if it's 10 boats worldwide using it more or less regularly, then that's my best estimate, I think. So it's not big, but they're working on it.
And how about the interest from the, say, electricity, like Nuon or those kind of guys?
Yeah, they're
It just went down. It's
Oh,
very
yeah?
strange. Yes, 5 years ago I still had some interest from companies because but nowadays, in particular the last 2 years, all the companies go more conservative. So they talk about nuclear power, they talk about putting less energy into renewables. You see that the companies will go into another direction, which I think is really bad. I mean, we should somehow with the government we should stop that. But they don't, because that's where the most profit is.
Okay, that's the reason behind it.
they kind of say, show us first that it works,
show
and
us
then we
cheaper.
come and join.
But is it due to the credit crunch, you think?
You never know to what is it due. It's like a cultural shift. I think that a lot of the lobbies which are dealing with large investments money, who would like to, with particular good in getting money out of this, that they just got more power at the moment. And why that is, whether this is because of the credit crunch or I don't know, it's just a matter of life. But you have to fight it, and in fact, I sometimes wonder whether many of the scientists, particularly the technical scientists, should not really be more active in the society and to show the alternatives, rather than we leave it all open to the open market, whether the alternative gets a chance.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge to get it actually working at the moment? Is it working out how to make the kites run themselves? Is it how to get the most power out of it to make it efficient? Or where's the...
Making this, getting this autopilot ready and completely reliable, that's a very big challenge. Selecting materials that can stay up for months or long enough to make it cost efficient, that's a big challenge. I guess the autopilot is one of the most clear, one of the clearest challenges, but there are many small challenges laying in front of us.
Well, I guess if a person can do it, then there's no real reason why a machine shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, exactly. If I fly the kite, it's actually so easy. I don't have to concentrate or anything. I just fly it. I make a curve, and then I talk a little bit to my colleague, and then I make another curve. And if it takes me this little effort, then I think shouldn't be that difficult for an autopilot. The only important thing is, of course, if unexpected things happen, then you have to be prepared. And so, but I guess the autopilot is one of the big challenges.
When you talk about that, what about the regularity of a system like that? Because people are thinking economically only in terms of profit.
Yeah.
So they want to know that the boat is going with an average speed, like these large tankers.
Yeah, if you talk about boats again.
Yeah. So they want to know it's leaving port then, it's arriving then, it has this average speed. So we can calculate how much profit we're going to make. How are you going to calculate these things when you're going to be propelled by wind again?
Yeah, of course it depends. The amount of energy that you're gonna burn depends on how much wind you get. But if you know that it's all profit, then you'll accept that it's a bit varying. Because if you take a big ship and you have a headwind for a few days, then you burn a lot more fuel as well. So it's already like that. So I don't think it's gonna change that much in that sense.
I would like to add a few things to that. The knowledge which we'll have about wind is going to be improved a lot in the future. There's some experimental satellites like the satellite Beagle, the God of the Wind, which can measure wind continuously all over the world. We'll get more of that with good model programs, such that you can really rely on the prediction of the wind. So then you can make optimal routes. But then, as you can communicate also exactly what route you take, and then the trip, say time, is not exactly fixed, but it is already known in advance. And then you can get very elaborate systems, which in fact is already practiced in Singapore, where basically almost each container is known where it will be when. And so you can basically use this whole logistical path in your production or in your delivery logistical system. And you can use, the fact that the trip just takes a little longer also to your advantage, because then you don't need to put it in your storage. So it will become much more complex, but information technology will allow you to be still at the end very efficient and effective.
Which of the concepts do you think would be the most efficient?
Different concepts. Yeah, that's a good question. We're having some discussions about whether you should take like a soft kite that we're using on this ship, or more something like an airplane or like a glider, carbon epoxy composite structure. And yeah, it's interesting to see the developments in every direction. I think it's hard now to predict which one is going to be best, because for each system we don't know a lot, and yeah, it's just interesting if there are different parties around the world working on it, and we can compare how far each party is getting. Then I think that's the best way to go forward. Everybody staying with the thing that he believes in, and then compare how far everybody is. So it's not.
And I like to add that what we should do as a society is that we should make money available for many young people to work on it, because it's not only fun, but young people will work harder, they'll have more energy, they ask for less salaries, they work more hours, and they have more time. So, and it's also for their benefit, because a sustainable future is not so much for people like me, but it's more like people like Rolf and younger people. So I plead for getting more money to young people. I guess you would agree on that. I think that maybe we should close off this round. I just want to show the camera that two good ideas came up tonight, which I draw here, and that is the idea of allowing Rolf to go a speed kite with the longer lines and having the steering lines being connected to the power line. And another drawing of the kite, which is now standing up in front of this ship, which I think we can also extend with a little rudder and two steering lines, such that